You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the October 24th, 2023 meeting of the LaPorte County Board of Health. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
All right, you guys have a quorum.
Yay!
Yay! Who wants to run the meeting? I can do it from here. Or what? We got to get started. So, who wants to go on that?
Who's our vice now?
You.
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No, you. There was somebody else reelected. There's somebody else that was elected.
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. Like I said, I just pulled off to.
Okay. All right. Well.
But I mean, I can do it.
I've got the agenda in front of me.
So do I.
Amanda, you want me to start the meeting?
Okay.
Dr. Dora's here, and he's vice president, so he's going to run the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Dora.
Okay.
And it's
All right. Roll call.
Mrs. Arnold,
Here.
Dr. Dora,
Here.
Dr. Uhas,
here.
Ms. Lawn,
Here.
Dr. Manny Cox, and Dr. Nelson.
Here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our first item is approval of the minutes from the July 18th, 2023 meeting. I'm sure everyone's read that, and do I have someone to make a motion to accept the...
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. All approved, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
I think we have to, because there's a couple of us on Zoom. I think we have to say our names and do it according to our attorney.
Do we?
Julia do a roll call for that, so she'll call your name, and it's either, then place your vote, please.
Okay.
Mrs. Arnold,
Aye.
Dr. Dora,
Yes.
Dr. Uhas,
I
Ms. Lawn,
Aye.
Dr. Manny Cox, Dr. Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next, we have Attorney James Kaminsky for presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you, members of the board. I am Jim Kaminsky, an attorney in LaPorte, represent Infinite Residential Development, which is the developer of East Shore Preservation Townhomes on McClung Road. It is in the city of LaPorte, just on the county dividing line. Mr. Fedorchak, the manager, is here and can help with answering questions. Our request tonight is for the issuance of a public pool permit for the East Shore development. And there's been a little bit of confusion in the past on the process for this particular project. So I wanted to briefly explain what's happened that's led to our request that the health department issue the permit for this particular pool. East Shore Townhome Association plans to have a maximum of 12 units. It's not fully developed at this time, but after permits were issued for the beginning of the townhome development by the city, a pool that was a part of the plans was developed and has been built. In the spring of 2023, though, after plans had already been submitted to the city engineers department for the development, including the pool, Mr. Fedorchak and his team, as they were ready to dig the pool, discovered that the depth of Fish Trap Lake, which abuts this development, had actually reduced. The shoreline was going down. And as they dug, they discovered that there was are a fair amount of silt and some water back out. And it really turns out that Fish Trap Lake is drained at times by the city, and that had happened. Mr. Fedorchak feared that what would happen in the future with this particular pool, that if a main drain for the pool, which was a part of the original plan submitted, that if the water level would come up because the city opted not to drain as the water level went up for Fish Trap, he feared that silt would actually back into the pool and would cause a health hazard and a problem for the homeowners association once he turned over the townhomes to the homeowners. So he made the decision to build the pool up 2 feet above grade without a main drain. He did use the pool kit that had the main drain, but modified it so there wouldn't be a main drain, developed side circulation for the water and skimmers to take care of any health concerns on the water. That all happened in the spring of last year. The city, the pools are governed primarily by the building department, not the health department, even though the health department issues permits for pools, public pools. And Mr. Fedorchak doesn't have good documentation in that, but as the architect and the developer made that modification thinking it was the best thing to do for the homeowners in the long run for this pool. As the project was getting completed and the health department came out with Floyd from the city building department, the main drain not being there was pointed out to Mr. Fedorchak by the health department and the city. And even though the city issued the building permits for the project, the health department voiced concerns that the original plans had a main drain and now the pool was built without it. Mr. Fedorchak was then directed to go to the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees building permits in the state, and apply for a variance. He did that this summer, and the variance was issued for the pool without a main drain. And the Department of Health locally has had questions, though, about why did this get built without the main drain per the original plans, and why didn't we have an opportunity to see the modified plans to, have comfort with the issuance of a permit. So with that said, I got involved a month or two ago. We sent a letter directed to Amanda at the health department saying we would, of course, hold the county harmless if there were any issues because this pool existed without a main drain. And then also gave an assurance that any projects Mr. Fedorchak would be involved with, we'd certainly reach out to the health department if there was going to be a change in plans. And I would tell you, I'm reiterating that today, that if in the future there's a project with a health department issue like a pool or other issue on building construction that requires a permit, if there's going to be a change in plans, we'll do it. I know that because of the way this happened, there seems to be some, was he trying to pull a quick one? There was no cost savings to eliminate the main drain in this instance. He modified the kit for the pool that had a main drain. We provided a lot of different pool association and other documentation in advance of the meeting to show that pools without main drains we believe don't really pose a health hazard. And finally, we're very well aware that weekly there will be water testing required and it will be done and has been done actually since Homeland issued its variance. And moving forward, Mr. Fedorchak and the homeowners are aware that health department can come out also and test on their own to be sure the water is safe. So we're sorry what's happened that led to me even having to be here, but we would hope you'll issue a permit for this public pool for this association in consistent with the Department of Homeland variance that has been granted, for this particular bill. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. And on the technical side, this isn't up my alley. Mr. Fedorchak could answer some of those questions.
I would like to know how it was modified.
The main drain was eliminated, and there are side circulation pumps and skimmers, as I understand it.
So 80% of the pools built in the United States have no bottom drain. The building codes are headed towards eliminating them because they're such a safety hazard. They had the Virginia Graham Baker laws 20 years ago or so, where people were drowning, they were getting sucked into these drains, and it became a hazard, so they made them put 2 inlets instead of 1 to try to reduce the velocity of the water going down and keep people from getting their bathing suits or whatever attached. Well, part of that is you're allowed to shut down this main drain. You can put a valve on there, shut it down, essentially eliminating or abandoning this drain. That's part of the law. So another interesting part is no matter how big a pool is, whether it's a 5x5 swimming pool, our little swimming pool, Olympic-sized swimming pool, a double Olympic-sized swimming pool, water park, whatever it is, every single state has the same building code that says you only need to have 1 bottom drain, the bottom drain that you can shut off. So it's not anything to do with circulating water, because if it was, you would think that every 800 square feet of water, they would want to have another drain to ensure proper circulation. That's not the case. And they say that they're going to get rid of this dangerous thing in the future. The reason we got rid of it was, as Jim was saying, it's kind of like filling your kitchen sink up with water and taking a big Tupperware bowl and pushing it down in there. The swimming pool is essentially that when the lake level rises up. If you drill a couple holes in there, you can put all the Flex Seal you want and have all the TV commercials you want. You push it down in there, it's a matter of time before those fail. That water, that mucky water, is going to back up in there. And if it happens at a time while the lake is very high, it would be almost impossible to put enough drill points around the pool to drain the lake level down to repair it. So we're just trying to stop problems that are going to happen in the future. Didn't save us a penny. I probably won't be alive when that happens, but it's the same reason I don't put extra holes in roofs. You're just asking for problems. So the engineers that designed the pool were very specific and said it's designed not to have it. It's not an issue. When we had our variance hearing with the state of Indiana and the state building commissioners, they were very detailed. We showed them pictures of the skimmers and the jets and the drains, and they were very satisfied. These are the professionals that do this every single day, and they gave us our variance. They said there was no threat. They were happy to do it. Other questions?
Question from Mr. Kaminsky.
Yes.
It's Dr. Uhas. Hi.
Hi, Doctor.
Hi. My question is about the hold harmless. Can you explain a little bit about who is being held harmless?
It would be the county. As I believe Mr. Fedorchak was trying to deal with some county officials on it, it was suggested that he issue a letter with a hold harmless to the county that if there were any claims because of a health issue with this pool, we would hold the county harmless from it. And I had corresponded with Attorney Friedman about that, I want to say in August, and that's what led to it.
So what you're saying is if there was no main drain and then someone got ill and they became litigants, that the county would be held harmless from any such claim.
Yes.
Do I understand this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what is the objection, if any, by the health department so far, given that you've explained that main drains can be dangerous to the public, and you cited the Virginia law where they had to put a special law that made sure that the lid on the main drain was maintained because of injuries, and you guys provided data for arms, legs, evisceration, hair, entrapment, drowning, so that there is a danger for high suction main drains. On the other hand, there seems to be an interest in keeping them. What is the positive side of having a main drain in terms of public health and filtering particulate matter from feces and vomitus and things like that. Surely they're not all abandoned now. There are still main drains being installed. Can you educate us on that, please? What's the downside of not having a main drain? Anyone?
Well,
Is
Amanda?
that the question for me, Doctor, or is for
Well,
Mr.
who
Kaminsky?
could answer that? Because I didn't frame it the best, but what
yeah,
I'm asking is what are we really looking at here when we talk about issuing a permit? What's the downside? Because there's not going to be a main drain.
Correct. It's not going to be a main drain. We're happy to issue the permit if the board is comfortable with the hold harmless. Our whole position has been with the main drain that it does provide some, maybe not a significant amount, but it does provide some circulation with the water, and our concern is getting those deep pockets of water and having them properly circulated, chlorinated, or brominated if the pool is using bromine instead of chlorine. It just was a massive major deviation from the rule, which we had not seen before. And when I queried other counties, they had not seen it either in their pools and the counties that responded to my query. So we just want to be above board on that. The state code requires a main drain. The health code requires a main drain, or requires that it conforms to the building code. So
How can you explain to me, without a whole lot of engineering detail, how could the Department of Homeland Security override any state codes that you just referenced? Is it in their purview to do that?
that's a very good question, and I'm sure will be discussed for the next several years. There's a process in place now that began mid-July with when the State Department of Health received concerns about not just this pool but a couple others going in, and where they had not been notified that these variances had been applied for or granted. They are working now to have a notification system put in place, and that these other agencies that Department of Homeland Security rulings affect, for those agencies to have an opportunity to respond.
And you were not
Going forward.
Yeah.
I
Can't go backwards in that. And to bring some of the confusion as well, Department of Homeland Security at one point told us we didn't have to honor those variances. I think that's where a lot of the confusion came in, and this is what has brought us to this point today as well. But again, if the hold harmless if the board is comfortable with the hold harmless, of course we'll issue the permit.
Well, I just want to make sure that as a member of the board that we are fully aware of the health and safety concerns of not having a main drain as far as circulation. And I understand there are, correct me, Mr. George, if I'm wrong, you've put in additional skimmer, sidewall, inflow to increase the circulation. Is that what I read correct?
It is properly designed to eliminate the bottom drain. And if you like, I could just read you a quick quote from a magazine. It says, "Science concludes in the 2006 issue of Fluent News, the leading manufacturer of computational fluid dynamics software, an article ran that compared pools with and without drains. The conclusion was there was no significant differences between the circulations of a pool with and without a bottom drain. In fact, the pools with a skimmer only were slightly better. Circulating and sanitizing water in both residential and commercial pools is neither complex nor difficult to achieve. There are only 3 reasons historically associated with requiring drains. The first is the cleaning the water. Second is sanitizing the water. Both are achieved through the use of circulation and filtration systems." And this was 17 years ago, so the science has gotten much better. The third reason historically cited is the practical need to empty the pool. Well, the drain of the pool, the motor is very slow, so when the people,
Well, you could put a sump pump in.
they do that because it's.
That's what it said
Yes.
in the document. So yeah, all right. Anybody else have any questions?
I'm personally okay with the hold harmless. I'd probably defer to, say, our attorney on that. But I've seen drainless, these main drain pools elsewhere in the world, even in Florida. One of my friends put in a drainless pool not that long ago. And I'll always remember years ago listening to the news about some little kid that jumped in the pool, somehow sat his little butt on one of these that had a single,
Oh yeah.
and had his innards ripped out and the whole thing. It was a whole, I mean, I think that whole news article gave me just nightmares for days. So yeah, this, I mean, again, if we have the hold harmless, this isn't ideal. It would have been better if we had the plan ahead of time, so it would have just been kosher instead of asking for forgiveness. But I think it's a done deal, and we're held harmless. Again, I defer to our attorney, and I think we should just let things go on this one.
Attorney Nirenberg, what do you think about the hold harmless?
Good afternoon, Doctor. Well, I did get a copy of it from Mr. Kaminsky, and it looks okay. I appreciate the optics. There's may be concerning. Secondarily, though, it might be a good idea for the board to make a motion so that to go on record requesting that the Indiana Board of Health promulgate a rule for the Indiana Administrative Code that requires any time a variance goes to Homeland Security, that every affected local agency is notified at the time of that application. That way, moving forward, if there's ever any questions or anything, then we can at least be advised about it beforehand and we could go there and raise our concerns. But yes, I jumped track, but going back to your original question, yes, I think Mr. Kaminsky did an okay job on the hold harmless agreement. There's really not a whole lot that he can say. I think that it was nice to see, it was reassuring to see that Mr. Fedorchak's not going to do this moving forward, so that too is helpful. But I don't know anything about the engineering of pools, so we're going to gloss over that.
Thank you.
I have a question. Has this ever been done before, a drain modified? And if it was, is it running okay?
Well, 80% of the pools in the United States have no bottom drain. So yes.
Okay, but
Modified.
has anybody ever modified the drain like you've done?
Well, the Virginia Graham-Baker Act allows you to shut it off, essentially eliminating it. So I would say that would be a modification to that. We didn't modify it, we just didn't build it with it, like the other 80% of the pools in the country.
So, Mr. Fedorchak, when you say the other 80% of the pools in the country, does that include residential pools, or are we talking commercial pools?
Residential pools.
Residential pools.
Absolutely.
So that's incorporating all of those.
All pools.
So we know there's a lot more residential than commercial.
All pools.
Okay, thank you.
So, Dr. Cox.
Yes,
Dr. Cox had her hand up.
yeah, I'm trying to,
The
bottom, okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to know, you said that your reference is 17 years ago. Do you have any more recent references, and how legitimate is that the industry?
Now, it's the industry standard magazine. Now, I have hundreds of other articles. I just picked through a couple of them because
Okay, but you have no recent,
I have, not with me, but I mean,
yeah,
they're talking about eliminating the bottom drains in pools nationwide as part of the building code because they're so dangerous. So
I
a
see.
lot of science in there.
Yeah, and I think some of the materials we provided were from like 2018 to
Right.
20.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
only because I just want to know what is the latest procedures that are done, things done 17 years ago. Well, we need to look at a lot of different things.
Now they have variable speed pumps. They have all sorts of crazy things going on that they didn't have back then. So it's substantially better.
Okay, but it would have been nice to have that reference.
I could
Thank
send you a book if you want.
No, just some a standard, research that was done, and usually we always look at some of the later, because things are done differently back then than they are now, and whether or not those still apply, those principles still apply. Okay, thank you.
I guess the board has to decide if we feel that it's safe for the public to permit the pool for use, knowing that we will have a hold harmless clause in case something happened unforeseen. That's what I'm seeing it come down to.
So are you looking for a motion to allow this permit with the modification that we weren't expecting initially?
I think that's where this is going to go, yes.
All right. I don't know the best way to word that then, but I would be happy to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? And we can vote.
Mrs. Arnold?
Aye.
Dr. Dora?
Say your name, please, because we're on Zoom too. So,
Starting to say it.
Dr. Yoha? What's long as a microphone? Okay. You're welcome.
we've done this before. We've been in meetings.
Aye.
Dr. Dora,
Aye.
Dr. Uhas,
Aye.
Ms. Lawn,
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox,
Aye.
Dr. Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have time for public comment. Does anyone have public comment? Okay. If not, we'll move to reports and discussions. And first will be our health officer's report.
Well, us all here. Again, COVID is always, it seems to start, and it's still, the numbers are going up slightly, but nothing like the spikes that we've had in the past. It's primarily affecting, in terms of hospitalization and death, the elderly and people that have immune compromising diseases. So it's not been quite like the young, healthy people. Now, that doesn't mean they're still not getting it, but they're not the ones that are in the hospital at this time. The newest of the boosters or vaccines is out for everybody from 6 months up, and it still has not had a huge turnout, but it is available, and hopefully people will continue to do it, because one of the other things that the next thing, if anybody's had a chance to look at my things about long COVID, is that's one of the biggest problems, both from people with it, and so the morbidity that goes with that, but it's also be very expensive. And the biggest problem is with long COVID, it acts in so many different ways. There is no true diagnosis of it. There is no treatment for it other than maybe antidepressants or pain medications or different kinds of things, but there's no specific treatment, and there's just multiple different symptoms. And I put in here, there's just a really good article that, if anybody has time to look at it, that comes out of Yale that really described what people are going through with this. So it's been described as a mystery to doctors and researchers. No positive findings. There's no test, like I said. You can't tell somebody, here's your piece of paper to say that you've got long COVID. But it actually is being looked at to be covered by oh my goodness, unemployment, that type of thing, or disability. It will be considered a disability, and that they're working on that at this time. So, again, all I can do to anybody is encourage them to continue getting the vaccines. The people with long COVID are disproportionately the elderly and those that have not been vaccinated. So, but young people are getting it. Doesn't mean you can't get it if you're not in those groups. I think Jenny's going to talk a little bit more about the vaccines. Influenza and the new RSV is out. The issue with the RSV is for everybody 60 and older, plus I know you're going to talk about children with this, but it's expensive. And so if Medicare does pay for it, but if you are in the 60 age group or you're old like me and not on Medicare, it's $130, $140. So I'm not sure how much that's going to affect some people wanting to get this, and I don't know how they're going to get around that, but that's what it is right now. And you can get them all, 3 of them, the same day if you choose to. Last meeting, or the one before, we talked a little bit more about the opioid crisis that continues to be considered one of the #1 public health issues in particularly the United States, but in the world in a lot of places. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any easy answers. It's so easy to make fentanyl, and they just can't seem to stop it from coming across the borders at this time. Not for lack of trying, and that's not a criticism. It's just has come. Killed more Americans in the wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan combined. I mean, that's pretty scary. The two wars killed a little over 65,000, all combined, and right now, in the most recent year, with the completed data, it was 74,000 for the drugs. I mean, and there's obviously more, probably for both, for that matter, but there's more what we don't have, that people have just died and not been able to be registered for this type of thing. In some of the bigger cities, there is now becoming a push to start. This has always been around, particularly in a place like Amsterdam, but to start some safe haven for people using these medications. And the hope that a couple different things would happen is that they would then be exposed to people there that could help them discuss rehab, help them, because so many of them are homeless, help them in that direction. It wouldn't be just be there with the Narcan. But again, when you think about all the people that are dying from it, having the Narcan available is also a really important part of it. It hasn't found a home in hardly anywhere except New York at this time in terms of the United States. There just doesn't seem to be the money, or really, from what I was reading, particularly the interest in people putting money into something like this. Again, the other major mental health issue, which again is very little answers for, is mental health issue. 1 in 4 people in any given year have some type of mental health issue, is what they're saying. And it's really hard to get treatment. I mean, there's no psychiatrist. It's hard to get a counselor. Limited beds in the hospitals. It's just been incredibly difficult to get help for a lot of people. And again, I wish I had some answers for that one, but there's a lot of things that are being looked at, but there's a disparity in terms of both racial and area of where people live in terms of getting help. It's larger centers, you're more likely to find some help, but smaller centers, there just isn't. We used to have 3 psychiatrists here in LaPorte, and it's just very difficult to get help. I think that's all, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the report? Second.
So moved. Or second.
Okay. We can proceed to roll call vote.
Thank you. Mrs. Arnold? Aye. Dr. Dora?
Aye.
Dr. Uhas?
Aye.
Ms. Lon?
Aye.
Dr. Megan Cox? Dr. Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ready for the administrator's report.
Good afternoon. I'll just go over this rather quickly because we do have a longer agenda this evening, and I know you all love my little tiny voice. So, a couple of the highlights of the quarter would be our monster truck that we got. It finally was delivered. It's out in the parking lot. We've got the plates on it, so now we can drive it. We do need to make a few modifications to it because it is so big. It's an F-250 that we need to get some running boards on it so we can actually get in and out of it without a trip to workman's comp. I'm sure the county would rather we put money into the running boards. So now we can get that on the road, probably not till next season because it's all kind of running down for the year, but it is available to pull the trailer when we need it. Our budget was approved by IDOH and by the council for our Health First Indiana funding. It was submitted in September. It came back to us. There were 4 counties that did not opt in, so that gave enough money to spread out to the other counties. So we got an additional $49,688. So I had to do an amended budget and resubmit it to the state. You received our letter on the 13th of January, October, saying that it was all approved. So we'll be ready to go the first of the year. the other big thing this year. This last month just closed out our first year of FEMUR, so fetal infant mortality review, which you remember we got approved last year to do. We did it through that first year, a grant through the Healthcare Foundation of LaPorte for $65,000 to fund that program for a year. We celebrated Sleep Safe Month this month. In 2021, we saw 0 deaths due to unsafe sleep. So that is a huge accomplishment for LaPorte County. A lot of that is coming through probably through education and the programs that are put in place now with the hospitals and all of the safe sleep, what do I want to call them, not bassinets, but the playpens, the pack and plays that have a bassinet insert into them that we're able to give out for free, not just us, but other agencies and programs throughout the county. So that was exciting to see. And through an additional grant next year through the PIN grant through the state, and also with our Health First Indiana funds, we'll be able to continue that program next year and going forward. They're back to work on the building, which is even better. We have drywall up on our floor, so that's exciting to see from this blank concrete walls that look like a zombie movie we've all seen, you know, to have walls back up, to have, even if they're just studded walls, but the drywall to be going back up now, we can kind of see a light there at the end of the tunnel, which we haven't had for quite some time. So hopefully next year by March, knock on wood, I just hopefully I didn't jinx anybody, that we will be able to be back up on the 4th floor in our brand new, up-to-date, shining, spanking new office. And we're excited to get back up there. We have a lot of good things planned out. We have a lot of great ideas going forward with what the funds, what we'll be able to do with the Health First Indiana funds. So this all kind of, even though it didn't have to happen, it happened at the right time for us anyway, to be able to redesign that space, to be able to work better with Health First Indiana funds and the programming that we're going to be offering. Finally, I just want to close real quick with also our AEDs finally came in. At the beginning of the year, that was approved by the council to fund. Thank you, Mr. Novak. Funding for AEDs for all of our public buildings and non-public buildings. For most of our county buildings will now have AEDs. Both courthouses, the Hyler building across the street, and the complex here will have an AED on every single floor, and not just one per building. The county parks on both Lorg and Red Mill, where there's people there, there's programming there, they will both have AEDs. There'll be AEDs at the highway department, at all of the highway buildings. So overall, we'll have a total of 26 AEDs now. So, and that's good news. So we're working with maintenance to get all of those installed. They all have cases on them. They'll be in plain sight, it'll be noticeable, and hopefully we never have to use them, but they're there if we need them. So thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them at this time.
Okay. Do you hear a motion to accept the administrator's report?
I move that we accept the administrator's report.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay.
Mrs. Arnold?
Aye.
Dr. Dora?
Aye.
Dr. Uhas?
Aye.
Ms. Lawn?
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox? Dr. Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is Environmental Health Food Division Supervisor's Report.
Good afternoon. Sorry. I'm going to start off with the third quarter Food Protection Division report. We had 318 routine inspections that were completed in third quarter. 18 new openings, 15 food complaints, and 188 temporary inspections. Our festival season temporaries are winding down. We've worked every weekend since April. I think this coming weekend is the first one that we don't have anything, there's no events going on. We had 50 temporary vendors at the fair and 4 mobile units. Went fairly well. No issues at the fair this year. We had 34 environmental complaints. Those complaints are not slowing down with burning season. Those are all gonna kick back up again. The beach sampling season is over, ended September 1st. There were 236 samples that were taken from Lake Michigan. I do have the report if anybody wants to see it. Plus all the samples from the inland lakes, but those are over. Our intern went back to school. There were 16 pool inspections that were done. We still are taking water samples at the 8th Street office. Since the water lab isn't open yet, 702 samples were taken in the 3rd quarter that went to the lab in Mishawaka. 68 septic permits were issued and 52 well permits. There were 2 lead assessments that were done in the quarter. The mosquito trapping season ended on October 13th. That was the last day that they were accepting samples from the state lab. We ended up with 102 pools of mosquitoes that were tested. We had 20 pools that were positive for West Nile, and we had 1 West Nile human case. The health educator, she did 6 events over the quarter, 3 continuing ed, 3 Narcan trainings, 51 Narcan doses were distributed, and 21 car seats that were given away in the quarter. That's all I have. Oh, we do have 3 septic cases with the attorney still trying to figure those out.
I have a question. Since you were talking about, it's Dr. Uhas up there. Since you were talking about water testing, there's been a lot in the media about microplastics. And there was just an article about it in the Great Lakes and how bad they are for our health. Is that something we're testing for?
We are not currently, no.
We're not able to test with that in our laboratory. There's some talk through IDEM DNR. Ashley Sharkey at the DNR is talking about putting a study together to look at that.
Yeah. It seems kind of important for public health. As it turns out, these little microplastics are dangerous to, the heart and various organs. So, Amanda, will you kind of keep us up to date on where that's going as we go through the year, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, do I hear a motion to accept the environmental health report?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes.
Dr. Dora?
Aye.
Dr. Uhas?
Aye.
Ms. Lawn?
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox? Dr. Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is the nursing supervisor report.
Good afternoon. In the 3rd quarter, all of the nursing staff were recertified in American Heart Association CPR and AED training. We now have COVID vaccine available through our Vaccines for Children program. We're required to carry this vaccine and offer it to children and adolescents who utilize our immunization clinics as part of their routine immunization schedule. Parents who wish to not take that for their children absolutely can opt out at the appointment, but it is offered to all children that come in to our clinic. We have also enrolled in the Bridge Access Program, which allows us to vaccinate adults who are uninsured for COVID. And we're doing that also through our immunization clinics. A little bit about the RSV vaccine. There are 3 groups of participants in the RSV for the RSV vaccine. The first one is for 60 and older, adults who are 60 and older, as Dr. Ducey had mentioned. 2 vaccines were approved in June of this year, a Rexv and a Brisvo. They're available in retail pharmacies, and between the doctor and the patient, the decision making and the recommendations are individually based and informed by a decision process between the healthcare provider and the patient based on the available evidence. And then you have the RSV vaccine for children up to 24 months of age. It's actually a monoclonal antibody. It should be administered, the best case scenario is it's administered in the hospital before discharge during the RSV season. But it is licensed up to the age of 24 months of age. So we will be getting that eventually. It's on hold now from the state. It has been ordered. It is weight-based. So 11 pounds and over is 1 dose, and up to 11 pounds is another dose. And then RSV vaccine for pregnant women. The FDA approved Brisvo for the prevention of RSV in infants through active immunization of pregnant women. And it's administered between 32 and 36 weeks of gestational age to protect the infants through 6 months of age from the mother getting the vaccine. We also saw 491 clients in our immunization clinic and gave 916 immunizations. We saw 38 clients for the blood profile program, provided 4 pack and plays and safe sleep education. We tested 6 kids for lead and followed up on 5 elevated levels. We saw 10 clients for confidential services, 7 clients for international travel vaccines, and 141 clients for TB testing. Any questions? Not necessarily the kids we tested, but from outside providers. Yes.
I have a little question.
Yes.
What's the status of COVID testing in the community? Can we still go to like a local CVS or Walgreens or come to you guys to have that done?
At-home tests available, but we don't do any testing of clients in the office. And honestly,
You do not?
we do not.
Okay.
I'm honestly unaware if pharmacies are still doing that or not. I'm sure we do get reports in NBS that hospitals are testing. Now, that's probably just the clients that are in the emergency department, I'm guessing, but I'm not real sure on the pharmacies.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just add one thing, is that the government had stopped providing any kind of COVID testing, the kits, and they are now doing it again. Every household can apply at covid.us and get 4 tests. So,
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Lucy.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I went and got all 3 shots in one day from CVS Pharmacy, and I'm alive and didn't hurt.
Good.
I recommend it.
Good for you. Good job.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you hear a motion to accept the nursing supervisor report?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Arnold,
Aye.
Dr. Dora,
Aye.
Dr. Uhas,
Aye.
Ms. Lawn,
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox, Dr. Nelson.
Aye.
Thank you again.
Next is the attorney's report.
Microphone. Hi again. As Ms. Wozniak pointed out, there are 3 cases pending, one of which the gentleman is diligently trying to track down some information. We're in constant communications just to discuss what repairs were necessitated and what repairs took place to remedy a problem of concern. Another case that's been pending for quite some time, I filed a notice of default because we're not getting an answer to our complaint, which is months old, so I have no words for that other than frustration. And then we have another case that's outstanding that I filed a complaint what is today, the 24th, 2 weeks ago, and so hopefully we'll get some responses to that. But at least we've got the same number of files this time, so that's a huge step forward. On another note, I did want to again raise the point that I raised earlier about the recommendation that perhaps this board consider passing a motion so that we can encourage the State Board of Health to get involved, to do something with the administrative code, and maybe Representative Pressel would like to add something to that as well. I don't know what his stance is on that, but this way at least all affected agencies would then be notified when and if variances go before those boards, and not to specifically to Ms. Layers, because it's important that we're kept in the loop when this is happening. And that's not to suggest that there's any wrongdoing going on. It's just it helps for her to be on notice when something like this does happen. So it's something to consider. I'm welcome. I entertain any questions as well.
Could we make that motion at this meeting, or do you recommend we add it to the new business for the next meeting?
You could make the motion right now. Again, I printed something out. I'd be glad to read it if that would be helpful.
I think that would be helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay, good. So LaPorte County LaPorte County Health Board hereby go on record with a motion requesting that the Indiana Board of Health promulgate a rule to the Indiana Administrative Code that requires any time a variance is sought from Indiana Homeland Security that all affected local agencies and the Indiana Board of Health both be notified at the time of receipt of any variance application. And then I just put the statute that's affected is IC 22-13-211.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments on this, or does anybody want to make a motion to accept that?
I would like to make the motion.
To accept it?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Mrs. Arnold,
Aye.
Dr. Dora,
Aye.
Dr. Uhas,
Aye.
Ms. Lon,
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox, Dr. Nelson. Thank you again.
Do I hear a motion to accept the attorney's report?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Mrs. Arnold,
Aye.
Dr. Dora,
Aye.
Dr. Uhas,
Aye.
Ms. Lon,
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox, Dr. Nelson. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to new business, and first is discussion and consideration of the revised septic ordinance. Are we doing these separately, or both these next two
And
lines
they kind of
going
weave
together?
in and out of each other, so we can discuss both if
But
you'd like.
discuss
We
both
can,
together. Okay,
you know,
that
I can
sounds
start with one and go to the next. So our septic ordinance does seem a little longer than probably the previous one. It was very, very short and sweet and to the point. There are areas that had to be added due to legislation, which A would be the holding tank. And all of the requirements before. Holding tanks could only be used for at a maximum length of time for 2 years, and that was waiting while sewer was coming through or for some other reason while your home was being built, and at the time the field couldn't be installed, so you could have a holding tank. This year's legislation allows for a permanent holding tank for both new and existing homes or commercial facilities. And with that came a litany of requirements in the legislation, so we had to adopt that into an ordinance. So that's one of the new sections within the ordinance. A few other areas, and I did color code it all for you. I hope that came through. Yes, yes. What was the one area? Some of the areas that were highlighted again in the green, they're new, but they're not new. We had in-office policies to that, and then we added them into the ordinance because, again, all policies and ordinances went away as of July 1st of this year, so all of that has to be approved through both you to move on to the commissioners, to move on to the state, to move on to TRP. to get it approved and going again. I don't know if there was any areas within that ordinance, the septic ordinance itself, that you had any questions about. And one of the new areas that we did add in was distribution boxes, and that is something that we have talked about for years. That's something that has come up multiple times with the installers, saying that the distribution box is the weak link of the system. It can go out of balance very, very quickly. As soon as you cover them up with dirt, that knocks them out of balance, which can cause all the effluent to go into one lateral or one finger of the system and not spread it out evenly. And to fix that, you have to, first be able to locate the distribution box if it's an older system, or even if it's a newer system and you have brand new, beautiful grass all over everything and you can't find it. You have to locate it, dig it up, but again, digging it up to hopefully fix it again and then cover it back up, and next time you go over it with the lawnmower, then it's out of whack again. So if you're having a riser coming to the top, to the surface, you can easily balance that back out by either, typically they put in speed levelers that's on the pipe going out for each finger. It's a little dial that can even out the flow, and they can kind of tweak the flow going into the field that way. So that's, again, that was all from input from both of all our installers. And we see that it's always been the weak link. The distribution box of the system is always the weak link. So trying to make it not the weak link anymore. On the property transfer ordinance, it's essentially the same, except for a few areas. Working with the original committee from 2015, which included health department, county council, county commissioners, septic installers / inspectors, and a number of realtors from the LaPorte County Realtors Association worked on this, was it 7 years ago now, and came back together to update the ordinance at this time. A couple of things that the panel wanted to see added to was under potable water. They would like to see a mandatory arsenic testing of drinking water wells. There's a number of counties surrounding us where there's arsenic in the water, and arsenic is one of those things that it's a cancer-causing agent, right? And if you're not testing for it, you don't know that it's not there, and you don't know if you're drinking things would be causing cancer. There are others is for homes built prior to 1973, for the plumbing, for the drinking water to be tested for lead. So those are the two things that they really wanted to add. The other thing was that the inspections for both septics and drinking water wells be provided to the buyers 3 days prior to closing. So the buyers are well aware of what they are purchasing. They're aware of what their water quality is, and also what the health is of their mini wastewater treatment plant that is in either the front or backyard, and what they will be taking on. As well as we added, and one of the current concerns is, and it always has been, and we've had problems with some inspectors, I updated it. I gave them a new copy of it. How do you weed out the bad inspectors? We updated language and added under Section 7 violation notices, penalties, and fines. That any inspector found to have intentionally or deliberately completed a septic inspection report falsely, required a homeowner to have work performed that is not required for a system that is not deemed failed, or performed work on a septic system without a permit shall be found in violation of this ordinance, and said violation shall result in the permit revocation of the inspector's registration.
Has that been a big issue? There's been enough around, well, obviously there's enough around that you've gone ahead and put that in, but, or is it more just in case?
No, it's happened, and it has happened in a handful of inspections that we know about. We hear stories about others, but there's no way to prove it. If we don't get somebody to talk to us about it, yeah. And it's enough that the inspectors who were inspectors who were on this committee to say, hey, we're seeing this as a problem, and how do we keep the bad inspectors from doing this?
Part of the reason for the quiz that they want to take every year too.
Part of the quiz that they do have to, so they don't have to take the quiz every year, but they will have to attend a meeting every year. So yes, so that's a way to keep them up to date on, and have a little reminder. Sometimes it's not bad to have a reminder about something, and let everybody know what's going on for the year, what's planned for the year as well. Yeah. So we do have Mr. Novak, who worked on the property transfer ordinance, here this evening. I don't know if he's just hanging out in the back room or if you wanted to add anything, or just hanging. Hi. Hey. But Mr. Pussell, Representative Pussell, is also here. He was the author of the bills, this year's legislation, that I'll let Mr. Pussell speak if he has any questions, or if he wants to give a view into why we're at this point where we're at, and why we felt that we needed a need for a reset on ordinances. Mr. Pussell.
Thank you. I'm Jim Pressel. Members of the commission, or we're a board, I appreciate you taking an opportunity for me to explain a little bit about what's really taken place. So I am the author of House Enrolled Act 1245 from a year ago, and I'm also the author of House Enrolled Act 1402 from this year. So in order to properly set the table, both bills as passed were not my original bills. They contained my original language, but most of the septic stuff was added to these bills. So I know an awful lot about it because I ended up having to carry it, but it was not part of the original bills. So House Enrolled Act 1245 from 2 years ago actually created a sunset, or a removal of any septic ordinances adopted locally that are more stringent than Rule 410, which is the state septic code. That was set to go away. Last minute negotiations took us to the point of we would wait 1 year to allow local health departments to kind of react to it, right? Give some input, get your ordinances in place. And then what took place was the state health department decided that they would promulgate rules, and they would take input from all 92 counties and essentially update Rule 410. And you can imagine that's very cumbersome, very hard to do. So what we did this year, coming up on the deadline of July 1st of 2023, when this is all set to level set and no local ordinance would be more stringent than what the state septic code is, we created a process, myself and the state health department, to take and treat septic ordinances like we treat the building code in Indiana. So you can pass a local ordinance, and then the commissioners adopt it or they decline on it. If they adopt it, then it goes to the state level. So this is not going to the Fire and Safety Services Commission, it's going to what we call the TRP, the Technical Review Panel. So the Technical Review Panel is made up of industry experts. There's a soil scientist, there's somebody from IOPA, there's a developer, there's the State Department of Health is on that. There's a individual representing ACEC, which is the Architects and Engineers of Indiana, their association. And then Amanda's actually on that panel. So their job then is to take a look at the ordinances and go, okay, this is why LaPorte County wants this, or St. Joe County wants this, and make their case, just like you would with the building code, and then talk about the fiscal. What is the fiscal impact of it? What's the need for this ordinance? Why should it be more stringent than what the state is? Because we don't allow for that in the building code. Only if it's approved or a variance granted for it, an approval of an ordinance. So that's kind of what the whole thing kind of started out to be. There was a provision put into 1402, which did away with, I call it point of sale inspections. So that's completely gone from anybody's ordinance. Now, there is an opportunity to put that back. You could do that. I'm pretty sure there will be legislation filed again this year to eliminate that entirely, along with home inspections. So great idea. I would highly recommend it. I think it's an awesome thing to do, to inspect your septic. It's a great thing to do is to inspect your house pre-sale. It's a good thing to have your water tested. But should government's function be to mandate a test? We don't make it a test or an inspection if I'm going to buy a used car. Do I got to go get it inspected so that I know everything about it? I think that's a great idea too, not government's role. So we don't require any kind of inspection point of sale for the whole home, but we do for septics in 2 counties, maybe 3. Is it 3? Allen County, St. Joe, and LaPorte. Okay, so you're 4 counties out of 92 that have done this, and probably we were the most recent. St. Joe County and Allen County led that charge. So I think that's going to come through the General Assembly this year. I would continue down the path that you feel is the right path. Hard to tell what happens in the General Assembly, but I just figured fair to throw that out there. So I listened to the last board meeting, and there were a lot of questions over septic ordinances, septic systems, and why the need for this. So the need is basically, it was a call from the General Assembly, not just Jim Pressel or Representative Morris or anyone in particular, but there are 92 counties with 92 sets of rules. And it's totally different from how we do the building codes in Indiana. And the look at the building codes and how that process works, state has one, locals can have an opportunity to go higher than that, but not necessarily on their own. Somebody needs to look at it. It takes the politics out of it. So there was a call or an urging to do that, and that's really how we got to where we are right now. Level set and create the process through the TRP to allow everybody to vet, why do we want this ordinance? So I can tell you with septics, in 92 counties, we're probably going to have different ordinances throughout all 92 counties. Similar to baseline Rule 410, and then adopted based on soils, based on capacity systems. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that are going to be different in LaPorte County than our neighbors to the west in Porter County. They've got a lot of clay. If I work in the north part of the county, we've got a lot of clay. But then we got a lot of sand too. If I work in the south part of the county, there's a lot of muck. So southern Indiana's not going to see that. They have all the hills and the rocks to deal with. And they don't have freeze-thaw cycles, which can, in my mind, absolutely affect the evaporation rates. So that's the need to allow local units to be able to adopt. So that's kind of the brief overview. I know probably too much about septic systems, and I should also tell you that I've been a builder in the community for over 30 years now. So I've seen a few of these. So I would be more than happy to take questions about anything you're proposing in your ordinance, anything about septics, anything about the legislation. I have not seen those. Those are like top secret, I think. I would love to dive through those. So let me say this: when you go to the TRP panel, and even when you go to the commissioners, so the law, I can tell you as a legislator over the last 7 years, we pass laws that people will come to us, industries come to us, associations come to us, attorneys come to us and go, it's too cut and dried. You got to leave us a little latitude to maneuver, right? And then when we pass something that's a little bit broader, they go, we don't know what you meant. It's too broad. So some of this is a little bit broad. Some of it is a little narrow. I would absolutely agree with that. Part of what's going on, and I don't know, do you have a fiscal for this?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so part of what's going to be required in the statute, and I didn't print it off, but if I remember right, Laura, you probably checked it all out. Yeah, so there's a lot there, 24 pages. Part of what's going to be required is a fiscal. So the county will have to present to the TRP panel and say, this is what the fiscal impact of doing this, just like with your riser. It's going to say something like it's going to cost, on an average home, $25. Or it may say $250, whatever that is. So every piece of that ordinance that is more stringent than is going to have a fiscal dollar attached to it. And I would think that the commissioners, before they vote on something, they should really know that fiscal also, but that is not part of the legislation. It was specific to the TRP panel would have that information. There's also a piece in there that says when you present to the TRP panel, you have to also show the need. Why do you want this ordinance? So I don't know, are we that far? Not that far?
Oh, yeah, I'm working, yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So, yeah, I'm happy to look at it, but like I said, happy to take questions too. Nothing? Okay.
I'm sorry, Annie. So you understand the process. If you're saying, yeah, we're good with this, so it'll go to the commissioners where it will be advertised, it'll be published in the paper, and open to public meetings for the public to be able to come in and speak on it. And this is, even though you're approving it, it still is technically a ordinance it's a commissioner ordinance. Just so you know the process. Then after they approve it, it'll go downstate. It'll be going through IDOH first. They will review everything, just make sure that there's no conflicts between the ordinance and current legislation. And if it is, they'll bounce it back to the counties. If they don't see any conflict, it will be moved on to the TRP. So I know recently I just spoke with Alice Quinn at IDOH that she had 18 ordinances that she was reviewing. When I talked to her Monday, was it just Monday? Last week. Today's Tuesday. Sorry, I was out of town yesterday. This Friday we have a meeting of the TRP, and out of those 18 ordinances, we're only looking at one. So, yeah, it's a long process. So there's a lot of different eyes that are looking to it. So we're the first step saying, yep, we need this ordinance. We feel that we need this ordinance, and then we'll move it up the chain.
You know, I'm just, thank you for coming, Mr. Fretzel. Really appreciate the in-service on this. Amanda, I have a question. Did I understand correctly that one of the concerns was in the past, LaPorte County Health Department mandated inspections, and now the point is that shouldn't be mandated by government. And when Mr. Fretzel encourages homeowners and buyers to do that, it would be optional on the buyer to do that. So far, is that correct?
That's not part of your ordinance. Your ordinance, as it stands right now,
Okay.
I believe since 2016, requires, government has mandated that at the point of sale, in order to sell your house or transfer deed, you have to have a septic inspection.
And that will remain?
No, currently we cannot mandate that. No, that ordinance went away July 1st. So
Okay,
we still have had inspections coming through. Some have still opted to have those inspections done, but the number has dropped off. So we're asking, and the community feels that group, again, it wasn't just me, it was this group coming together saying, yeah, we think we need to go ahead and try and get this passed again. That we've seen out of the 800 some odd reports that we get each year, have been concerns that, anywhere from 10 to 13% of the inspections received each year find the system is either in complete failure or there's no system at all that we otherwise wouldn't have found. And again, I think it is important and you know, whether it's mandated or not, to have a home inspection, to have your house inspected. That's a huge money, you know, $200,000 plus a year, or 200,000. Can you buy a house for under 200,000, Mr. Novak? Anyway, that's a huge life investment, and the septic system as well is a large component of that. You know, today I don't know if you can get a septic system for much under $20,000, and depending on the type of system, it can easily go over $20,000. So I think that is important as a homeowner, potential homeowner, to have the septic inspected. Again, whether there's whether there's a ordinance in place for it or not. But even to have that ordinance approved and all those years ago was years of working in the region, working with the Indiana Sea Grant and IDEM and DNR, saying we think this is a good thing and what do we have to do to get it done. And LaPorte County was the first one in Northwest Indiana. There's other counties that were talking about it, but it put a pause on it until we see what's going to happen here.
So as it stands, it's up to the homeowner at the point of sale to make a decision about doing an inspection, say for the septic or not.
It could be the homeowner or the purchaser saying, it could be the homeowner saying, hey,
I meant the purchaser, I apologize, yeah.
Yeah, it could be either or.
So nothing stops that.
Nothing
right?
stops it for voluntarily occurring, no, doctor.
All right, and then the cost is on the purchaser.
That's between, it depends.
Or the seller, what they
Yeah,
agreed
it could
to,
be the purchaser or seller.
And I'm a little confused. So it's still in your ordinance, right? It's just not in effect.
That ordinance isn't correct. That part, we are not enforcing that part of it, but we are enforcing the drinking water section.
Right, but what you are presenting tonight includes making it mandated.
That would be part of the ordinance again,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm on the same board, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And just that, because it's a point of, we're calling it not necessarily a point of sale, but property transfer inspection, that the water and the septic is together in one ordinance.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I know you stood up, Mr. Novak. Come on.
I know.
Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
Randy Novak, realtor. Okay.
Extraordinaire.
We'll pull that one out. So my thing is being in real estate since '98, this was a big change for the Realtor Association, but since it's been imposed, it has been a very good and well-received thing because of the inspections and the unknown, especially with things around, let's say, Hudson Township or go down by Fish Lake, the high water tables that we have in this county. So I like it. This is me personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Realtors Association, but I like the ordinance. I it'd be nice if we could put it back, but I understand, what the state's talking about with the building code and how that all works. Because being a fire inspector before, we dealt with them a lot. So it'd be nice to get it back. I support it, but so all right.
And not to influence anybody, but we did receive the Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence for the Property Transfer Program in 2018. We've received national recognition for our program. I presented, the EPA asked me to present on this one year for one of their conferences. So, I mean, it's been recognized.
It's Dr. Uas again. It kind of seems like common sense that the health department, which is involved with public health and safety, would mandate at the time of a purchase of a home that the septic and water were, tested. And I'm not quite certain why it's important not to mandate that, because the government does tell us to do certain things, and this is on the cost is on the purchaser or the seller, as Mr. Pretzel pointed out. That depends on the contract, but why is it important not to have it in?
Free will. I don't know.
No, I know. Did we lose Mr. Pretzel, the author of
Oh, no, he's still here, but I think Dr. Nelson had a point he'd like to make.
Sure, I'll be quiet.
Kind of forgot what it was, be honest with you.
ADHD.
I missed the question.
Oh, I know what it was. It's if we approve this ordinance, this is not law. This
No.
is a suggestion from the Department of Health to our commissioners. It's going to go through a huge review process, and then ultimately it's going to go down to Indianapolis, and the state has the right to say, yeah, we like that, go with it, or no, we don't.
And the technical review panel, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, the TRP.
The TRP, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, I'll be recusing myself from reviewing our own ordinances. So
Yeah,
anybody
of
out
course.
there in TV land be like, hey, wait a minute. And that was brought up as concern from some of the other counties. I was like, man, I was going to do the right thing anyway, but thanks.
Okay.
Yes, Dr.
Is that Mr. President? I can't
Yeah,
see the
I'm back
podium.
up. I missed your
Yes, sir.
question, but happy if you could give me the question again, I'd be happy to answer it.
I'll try. It's easier said than done. I was just wondering it seems like it's common sense that the health department, which is entrusted with public health and safety, have this policy for a sale of a home where a septic system is inspected as a mandate. Now, I don't, and it's paid for not by the taxpayers, it's by the entities involved in the transaction. Why don't you like that? Why should we
So,
want to see it go on?
I'm not opposed to the inspection, and if my daughter were going to be buying a home that she did in Granger 3 years ago, I told her you should get a septic inspection so you know what you
Sure.
have. Even though the house is 3 years old, you should get a home inspection, and it shouldn't be your father doing it because there are paid professionals that really know what they're doing. Right? So I'm a home builder. I know a lot of things, but I wouldn't go through the same process. So I do believe it's a good idea. But I don't believe government should make that a mandate, right? So no different than a home inspection. And I would argue that there is health and safety there also. So if you don't have a home inspection, you could be buying a house with totally bad electric in it. You could have some holes in your roof that somebody cosmetically took care of, and you would have no idea. You could have mold growing in the walls, and I would also tell you that's a health and safety issue. Government does not mandate those inspections, but are they good ideas, and is it common sense? Absolutely.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. A home inspection, any flaws or deviations from code would impact that particular house and that particular buyer. But here, when we're talking about septic systems and when they fail, they can affect local environment, groundwater, that kind of thing. So it's not a contained problem.
Yeah.
It's something that can affect neighbors and people down the street. So there are instances where I'm not in favor of government overreach, but there are other instances where it's nice to have someone kind of looking out for us and saying, you guys need to be doing this, and not to have people try not to do it because it saves on cost. I'd like to know that this house down the street that's hypothetical now is being sold has had their septic inspected.
Well, maybe we should enforce that we have an operating permit. We don't get septic permits anymore. We have an operating permit that I believe is good for 3 years. So when's the last time we've actually enforced that operating permit and said, bring in your inspection? So there's a law in the books that already kind of takes care of that for anything new and repaired, unless I misunderstood the ordinance.
Well,
The
I don't want to be.
permit is just, I'm supposed to renew that every 3 years. Right, and so there's your opportunity without forcing a point of sale inspection.
Okay. Thank you.
I didn't quite understand. We don't have septic anymore, so if I had a septic, if I still have my septic, then somewhere down the line I would have been told that I have to have it inspected every 3 to 5 years. Like that would come.
Doctor, speak into the mic.
It would depend if your house is new or you just did a remodel project on it. So I'm not sure when that operating permit came into play. But there would be no requirement, like if your house was built in 1996 and you'd never done anything with your septic before, there would be no requirement to do anything. Now, if we'll just speculate and say that ordinance went into effect in 2018, and I don't know when it went into effect, that's only good for 3 years, and you're technically supposed to come up and re-up that operating permit.
All right.
Am I right? Am I wrong?
Right, so that doesn't require an inspection. That requires us to show that you're pumping it, and that should be renewed every 3 to 5 years. Yes, and I will admit that has been a difficult one to manage and figure out how to handle. We were supposed to be able to do it through ITOS. ITOS was updated, but it didn't help us go back 5 years later to see which ones were going without having to go through and physically pull paper files.
Technology.
So we've had a hard time with that.
That's right.
When it works, it's great. Correct. The ones that require an inspection are the ones that are using technologies new to Indiana, or if they're using aeration unit or something like that requires a inspection per code on those items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also, if the operating permit were actually up and working, if the technology was working good, right, and you bring in that proof of pumping it, those are typically the same people that do the inspections. And I know pumping that tank's important, right? So we need to do a better job educating the people that are on septic systems, because most people don't know anything about it, right? So every 2 years, even though there's only 2 people in my household, on my birthday, the septic guy comes and he pumps up my septic tank. And it's the same day I change all the batteries in my smoke detectors, because I can remember that, and it's simple, right? But that septic guy will also tell me, hey, Jim, you've got a lot of solids in here, or you don't have a lot of solids. Everything looks good. We pumped out X amount of gallons, which also triggers them into, if they pumped out 1,500 gallons out of a 1,000-gallon septic tank, there's a problem, because we're sucking water out of the finger system that shouldn't be there.
I
It should be
agree.
evaporating. So there's your clue. So again, if you did if you had the technology to work on the 3-year operating system, you wouldn't have to do this.
So what you're saying is there's a system in place, but it's not being utilized, and it's already a government mandate.
No, it's not anymore, Doctor.
Okay.
And that was,
Well,
we're going down the rabbit hole, and I don't mean to cut anybody off.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Coming in
I
after
don't want to beat
us,
a dead horse.
that they're circling the wagons outside the door.
Maybe they want to talk to you.
So, yeah. So again, this isn't going into law. You either would like for us to continue on and pass it to the commissioners for consideration.
I move we pass it on to the commissioners.
I have a question first.
Yes,
Are we
Doctor.
moving on both these ordinances, or just, or
That
do
would
we have
depend
to
on
do
the
those one at a
motion.
time?
You can do them at the same time. They don't have to
Both
be
at the same
individual.
time, okay. So,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept both, to move it on to the commissioners.
second motion, okay.
Did I say that right?
You said both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my motion. I gotta get a second.
Second.
Mrs.
Okay.
Arnold?
Aye.
Dora?
Aye.
Dr. Uhas?
Aye.
Ms. Vaughn?
Aye.
Dr. Manning Cox? Dr. Nelson? Thank you.
Then the last, I'm sorry, I'm not running this meeting. The last item on the agenda for this evening would be approving the contract between the Board of Health and Shaw Freeman and Associates, who that contract was included in your board packet. We're also asking for an increase of fees from $150 an hour to $175 an hour, as was approved by county commissioners in July or June? In June. You gonna keep me?
Okay. questions, or anyone want to make a motion?
Yes.
Is there not going to be any discussion on this?
I'm sorry, Ally?
Is there going to be no discussion on this?
You can discuss it, yes.
Okay, because I have something to say. I am concerned because, so we're increasing the fees 17%, and we're doing that retroactively by over 4 months, so like a third of a year. I personally have a problem with that, and maybe I'm the only one. But I don't like to buy groceries for 4 months and then being told 4 months later that they're 17% more expensive than I had already anticipated.
So to give some background on this, the commissioners approved an increase in per hour fees for the county attorney and for all boards back in June. However, since that time, the county auditor we had been receiving bills for at that current rate because it was approved by the commissioners. The auditor will not pay that until there is a signed contract between the board and our attorney's office. So that's why it's asking them to be back paid from June 1st. They have not received any payment for any work they've done since June. And the auditor will not pay those bills until we have this contract in place. So that's the history of it, and that's why it's being back paid.
So it's what?
I'm expressing my unhappiness about this whole thing. I understand there's been a lot of drama between the audit, unnecessary drama between the auditor and our current attorneys, and that is very unfortunate. I just don't like how this is, like I said, 4 months in, and I don't know who to blame. I don't know who to point fingers at. I just don't like it. So anyway, I just had to speak up.
Any other comments? Does someone want to entertain a motion?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Arnold? Aye. Dr. Dora?
Aye.
Dr. Uhas?
Aye.
Ms. Lon?
A reluctant aye.
Noted. Dr. Manning Cox? Dr. Nelson?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. All right, we need a date for the next meeting in January.
Yeah, I was just looking at the calendar. Tuesdays seem to work. What about mid-month, the 16th of January? It's a Tuesday.
Is that good for everyone? Good for you? 16th work? Okay. Ollie, does the 16th work?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
All right.
Be on the 16th, okay. All right,
Done and done.
the meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Hold on, I think one thing. The 16th is the day after Martin Luther King Day. So I just know that the 15th, a lot of businesses will be closed. I just wanted to make that known just in case that is going to affect anything with the building. I assume that I assume the courthouse will be closed on Monday the 15th.
I assume that it will be. We haven't gotten the calendar for next year yet, but we'll be ready and open for business the next day. So.
All right, very good. 16th sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Okay, we got it. January 16th, 2024.
Wow. All right.
I know.
Fun.
Thanks, everyone. Sorry I couldn't make it today.
Yeah, me too. I am.
I know.